Expectations have changed for the Jets. Can they pull off an upset in Dallas this weekend? We'll discuss today on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Friday, September 15th, 2023, and I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com. Thanking you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day. Subscribe to the show for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so that you get new episodes as soon as they're posted. If you're listening on a podcast source and enjoy the show, please give it a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube and enjoy this episode, please give it a big thumbs up. These things help us out and help other Jets fans find Locked On Jets. Today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download Gametime, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, the Jets are in Dallas this weekend for a game against the Cowboys. They're trying to start the 2023 season 2-0, and today we're going to preview the game. This has really been a week unlike any other for New York Jets fans. It's been a year unlike any other for New York Jets fans. From the offseason where you've been nervous for weeks, would Aaron Rodgers pick the Jets, to the month and a half it took between Aaron Rodgers announcing I'm coming to the Jets and the Jets actually pulling off the trade with the Packers, to all the anticipation of Hard Knocks, getting ready for the season. And then within 4 plays, Aaron Rodgers goes down. And we've talked a lot about it this week. And I feel like I've almost been like a friend. I've tried to be like maybe a therapist. You kind of talk things through with, because it's been a really tough week to be a Jets fan. And it's been a bittersweet week because the Jets pulled off one of their greatest wins in regular season history on Monday night. I think when you factor in the emotion of losing Aaron Rodgers, just what a difficult moment that was, how devastating it was. The fact that the Jets somehow pulled out a win, the team that did not feel sorry for itself despite facing the most devastating circumstances a team can face week one, losing a quarterback. And then you add on the weight of franchise history of, over 50 years without a championship. Just the feeling as a Jets fan that you always have that concern that like the other shoe is going to drop, that, something bad is lurking right around the corner, and you try and talk yourself out of it, but you always fear it's there. And then when it happens, you're so devastated. And, I think I've gotten more emails from listeners this week than I have at any other point in the history of this podcast. And I think it's just because it resonates. What happened there, I think we all feel it. And we were all really emotional when it happened. And it's going to take a while for all of us to kind of get over it. And we're just going to have to do it together. Now, I think expectations have changed for this team. I think we've gone from a team where you have to say this team had to have a big season for us to view it as a success, to now maybe a team could be a pleasant surprise. I mean, I don't think any of us thought the Jets were going to win that game against Buffalo on Monday night. Yet they rallied, they found a way to do it. And it's one of the things that can make being an NFL fan joyful. When things are at their darkest hour, or at least when things seem at their darkest hour, sometimes things end up pleasantly surprising you. Sometimes a devastating injury can be the type of thing that rallies a team together, especially when you have a game like Monday night where I bet you the Jets, if the Jets players were being honest with you, and I bet you if the Jets coaching staff was being honest with you, they'll never admit this in public, but I bet they thought that they were finished. I bet you they thought, when Rodgers goes down, we're not winning this game, the season's over. And then sometimes you just surprise yourself. Sometimes you're stronger than you realize. And I think as fans, one of the things we have to remember, especially in moments like this, when we had such amazing expectations and, we're not, who knows whether they'll be realized or not, but one of the big reasons we had these high expectations was that Aaron Rodgers was going to be our quarterback. There can be a lot of fun in watching an NFL team, especially a team with as much young talent as the Jets have. Jets have an interesting roster because on the whole, it's an old roster. This is one of the oldest rosters in the league, but the impact players on this team are very young and they're rising. They're ascending. We've got a lot of fun young players to watch, which has not been true for a very long time from this franchise. And a lot of it's the 2022 class: Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, who looks amazing already. I'm really delighted to see how quickly it looks like Breece has recovered from what can be a really tough knee injury to recover from. But you're also starting to see some other young players maybe rise up a little bit. Jermaine Johnson, who had a big training camp and had a sack in the opener. Jeremy Ruckert, who threw some key blocks. Maybe Jets did not have that dynamic of a passing attack Monday night against Buffalo, but they got some big blocks from their tight ends. And I got to give credit to two guys I'm very critical of, along with Ruckert. Not so much young players, but CJ Uzama and Tyler Conklin did a good job blocking, helping to move the offense. And, you talk about other young players, Xavier Gipson. I mean, not every young player who makes an impact is necessarily a star. Sometimes it's a role player. Sometimes it's a guy who contributes on special teams. The man who won the game, Xavier Gipson, or, even if you go to Elijah Vera Tucker, there's a lot of young talent on this team. Now they're going to have to replace the role players are all old, but the key players now, especially with Rodgers gone, are all young. And, there aren't a lot of expectations on this team at this point. There was so much hype heading into the season because Rodgers was here. And if you watched ESPN every morning, Jets would be like the number one story. Now the Jets are kind of fading into the background. Everybody's focused on other teams, but the Jets just had a huge win against Buffalo. And this is setting up to be the type of season that could be really fun because you've got this young team that could be rising and this young team that everybody's counted out. And one of the things I hate the most in sports is when some team claims nobody believed in us. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's a ridiculous cliche. That after the Super Bowl last year, the Chiefs, you had a couple guys on the Kansas City Chiefs saying, "No, everybody doubted us." Like, nobody doubted you. Literally, nobody doubts the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just become one of these things where teams like try and pretend everybody doubts them. The Jets right now are a team people are kind of counting out because of what happened at the quarterback position. But there's a lot of talent on this team, and you saw it come to play. You saw the way that defense played Monday night against Buffalo. You saw the way Breece Hall looked. You saw Garrett Wilson in what was a kind of a quiet night, not so much because Garrett Wilson was struggling, but more just because the Jets went very conservative on the offense and they didn't really give Garrett a whole lot of opportunities. You saw that touchdown catch. I mean, one of the great catches in recent NFL history. I still don't know how he caught that ball. And a guy who just has a knack for getting open. There's so much to be excited about with this Jets team. And realistically, I mean, are the Jets favorites to win the Super Bowl? No. They weren't favorites to win the Super Bowl with Rodgers. They're even less favorites to win the Super Bowl without Rodgers. But there's a lot to potentially enjoy this year. And there's also the joy of being a football fan. We only get 17 games a year where we get to watch our favorite team play. You get to be with friends. You get to be with family. You get to, be around your fellow fans and get to talk about a game. The other sports, like baseball, once the season begins, you play every day. The others, football and basketball and hockey, you get 82 games a year. In football, we only got 17 games to watch and enjoy and take it all in. So hope you get a chance to enjoy this game, enjoy this season, because there's still a lot to be excited about with this team. As devastating as Monday night was, I hope that you find the joy in the season because it's not all about winning the Super Bowl. Only one of 32 teams wins the Super Bowl every year. There are some really fun things that happen over the course of the season, and games like Monday night. It doesn't matter what happens the rest of the way. You'll remember that night forever. And that's one of the reasons you watch sports. One of the reasons you follow sports is in the darkest of times for your team, something amazing happens and you see a team rally together. You watch for years and years and years, and it can take forever to find a game like that. But when you see a game like that, it's worth it. And hopefully we'll have a lot more of those going forward this year. Now, head here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we'll focus on some matchups in this game. I don't think this game is necessarily as bleak as people are making it out to be for the Jets. Dallas is favored. Dallas should be favored. I do think that there's a pathway to victory for the Jets. I think there are a couple of matchups they can exploit, and we'll discuss them as we continue on this Friday edition of the Locked On Jets podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And you can get images of your seat before you buy, so you'll know exactly what to expect when you arrive. There's not going to be any surprises. You're not going to be behind like some sort of obstruction that means that you can only see half the field. You can also buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you'll never have to dig through your email. If you're thinking about doing a last-minute trip to Dallas to see this game, Gametime's got you covered. I used Gametime a few weeks back when I went to see some tennis, the U.S. Open. I didn't have a ticket the day of the event. I probably shouldn't have procrastinated, but when you do, Gametime is there, and I found it super easy to use. I found it super friendly, and again, the prices were good. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listener, first watch every day. A big shout out to you everydayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday, and then bonus episodes as needed. And there have been a lot of bonus episodes needed this week because there are so many different angles to the unfortunate Aaron Rodgers injury. And if you've been with me this week, thank you so much. And I like I said in the first segment, I've gotten so many kind emails from people this week who listened, who I think kind of felt what we were all going through this week. And I haven't been able to reply to everybody yet. I'll try and get back to as many people as I can this weekend. But thank you so much for everybody who's written kind notes this week about how we deal with the Aaron Rodgers injury. But believe it or not, we actually have a game to talk about. There is a game on Sunday between the Jets and the Dallas Cowboys. If you're scoring at home, the Cowboys have not beaten the Jets since 2007, which is a far less impressive streak for the Jets when you consider they only meet once every 4 years. So 2011, they played the Sunday night game where the Jets had a comeback victory in the fourth quarter. 2015, the Jets went down to Dallas, and the Cowboys were really beat up that year. It was an awful season for Dallas. That was the Ryan Fitzpatrick year where the Jets won 10 games, and they went down there on a Saturday night and scored a last-minute victory over the Cowboys. And then in 2019, a game I actually went to where the Jets were in the middle of a miserable season with Adam Gase. They got their first win. It was the game Sam Darnold returned from mono and jumped out to a big lead on Dallas and then kind of just held on for dear life. Jamal Adams made a big play near the end. So that shows you how long ago since the Cowboys have played the Jets. Sam Darnold and Jamal Adams were the key players the last time these two teams met. Dallas off to a really great start, dominant 40-0 win over the Giants week 1. So how can the Jets win this game? Well, I think a lot of it's going to be the same recipe you saw Monday night against Buffalo. I think defense has to come to play. And there's a potential pathway to victory for the Jets in this game. And I think it starts in the trenches. The trenches can be a great equalizer in this game. Even if you're the less talented team, if you control the point of attack, you got a shot at winning. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I think that the Jets have some opportunities because Dallas could be playing without both of its starting guards. It already kind of looks like our old friend Chuma Edoga is going to be starting at guard for Dallas on Sunday. And it's one of those things. Sometimes a guy gets away from your team for a year or two, and you don't really think of him ever again. And then you're playing him that week, and you're like, wait, Chuma Edoga's on Dallas? That's kind of what I was like. It's not like I've been following Chuma Edoga's career all that intently since the Jets cut him a year ago, but Chuma Edoga could be starting at guard, and he could be lining up against Quinnen Williams a lot. And, that's a pretty favorable matchup for the Jets if you ask me, but Zach Martin's also on the injury report now. He's a late add to the injury report this week. So will he play? And if he does play, what sort of condition will he be in? So if you look at the other defensive tackle spot, Jets got some really strong performances at the position Monday night. Now, Quinnen Williams, I don't think really filled up the stat sheet, but he made his impact felt. And he also impacted the play where Josh Allen threw an interception. He generated a pressure. He pretty much dominated a one-on-one matchup and he made a nice swim move to get to Allen and kind of forced Allen to just lay it up there, and Jordan Whitehead picked it off. And if you control the middle of the line, you got a shot. You really do, because that's where the point of attack is. You can shut down the other team's run game, and if you can generate pressure, you can cause the other team's passing game problems. You can kind of throw their timing off. You can throw them off rhythm. If you force the quarterback to move, so many routes in the NFL are based on precise timing that it can change a lot. So when I look at this, I see that this could be a key matchup. I think, the Jets have good corners. I do worry a little bit. I think Dallas is going to try and get CeeDee Lamb in the slot against Michael Carter II. And I think Michael Carter II is a very good corner. But I do worry about that matchup a little bit because the Jets aren't going to travel Sauce Gardner around. They're not going to put Sauce Gardner in the slot. I do think the Jets have good corners, though. But it's really going to come down. If the Jets can get to the pass rush, can get the pass rush heated up on Dak Prescott, then I think that they've got a real shot. And if you heard yesterday, I did the crossover show with Marcus of Locked On Cowboys. He talked about how Dan Quinn wants to load the field with safeties. And that makes a lot of sense in today's NFL. Robert Saleh is kind of the same way. You've even seen the Jets convert college safeties to linebacker. Essentially, they're playing a very similar role to like a box safety, but they just called them linebackers, trying to get faster. If you have safeties are faster than linebackers. In today's NFL, the game's all about speed. And on Monday night, the Jets kind of went in the opposite direction, where they went to a lot of big sets. You saw a lot of 2 tight end sets. You even saw a number of 3 tight end sets. In fact, on first downs, and first down's a good way to like judge the direction of an offense because it's a neutral situation. It's not an obvious passing down. It's not an obvious rundown. You can kind of do whatever you want on first down. The Jets had at least 2 tight ends on the field over half the time. And the only other team that was like that in the NFL in week 1 was Denver, which is ironic because, the feud between Nathaniel Hackett and Sean Payton, these 2 offensive minds, and the feud maybe pushing it. It was really Sean Payton who called out Nathaniel Hackett. It wasn't really Hackett who led to a feud, but the Jets were running multi tight end sets as much as any team in the league. And I think a lot of it went back to their philosophy in that game where they were trying to run the ball effectively. They were playing very conservatively. They essentially said, we're going to let our defense go out there and win the game. We're going to hope our special teams puts us in good field position. We just don't want Zach Wilson to make a lot of mistakes. We don't want to destroy Zach Wilson's confidence. And given the circumstances, that probably was the correct strategy for the team. So where am I going with all of this? Well, when you go bigger, it's difficult for the defense to say, we're going to put extra safeties on the field to get faster. So the Jets could maybe force Dallas out of their comfort zone a little bit. And we know Breece Hall is Breece Hall. He's got the potential to break big runs in this game. So I think the Jets, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Jets on offense might be able to run them. Now, what's going to be tough when the Jets try and run the ball is I think Dallas knows that they're going to try and run the ball. So I think you'll see Dallas really focus key on taking away the run. So it's going to be up to Breece to make some big runs. It's going to be up to the blockers to hit their blocks precisely. But I do think that there are a couple pathways for the Jets in this game. I think you can take Dallas out of their comfort zone on defense. I think that when the Cowboys have the ball, those guards could be an issue against these Jets defensive tackles because beyond Quinton Williams, Quinton Jefferson, Al Woods both had really good games Monday. They both look like they might be able to help this Jets team going forward. Now, here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we're going to close out our show. I think the Jets are going to really need to play mistake-free football, and we'll elaborate on that as we continue this Friday edition of Locked On Jets. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Do you ever find that just as you're trying to fall asleep, your brain suddenly won't stop talking? Do your thoughts start racing before bed and at other inopportune times? It turns out one great way to make those racing thoughts go away is talk them through. Therapy gives you a place to do that so you can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace. Therapy has plenty of benefits. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. And it is not just for those who have experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, you should check out BetterHelp. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks will be the most fun. You could win up to 25 times your money this season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less than their projected stats, and place your entry. PrizePicks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. This week, you can select Saquon Barkley for more than 60 yards, Patrick Mahomes for more than 2 passing touchdowns. You can pick Odell Beckham for more than 50 yards or Josh Allen for more than 2 passing touchdowns. PrizePicks is super fun and super easy to use. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl, code LOCKEDONNFL. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Friday. Jets and Cowboys on Sunday in the late afternoon time slot. Jets looking to go 2-0. It would be a surprising 2-0. The team that showed so much heart on Monday night, it's going to be a tough task. Dallas is one of the most talented teams in the NFL. I felt like heading into the season, even with Aaron Rodgers, this was going to be a real challenge going down to Dallas week 2 and winning this game. But it is doable. And I think that the pathway for the Jets to win this game, it's going to be similar to what you saw week 1 against Buffalo. Now, I think in the long run, Jets are going to need to figure out this passing game. I think they're going to need to start getting more from their passing game than they got against the Bills. And I think part of what you saw on Monday night was maybe the Jets just kind of making things up on the fly. I think it was the entire coaching staff was probably shell-shocked once Aaron Rodgers went down and Zach Wilson goes in. And I think the biggest thing with Zach Wilson is you don't want to lose his confidence right off the bat, because as much as Zach struggled with the tangible aspects of the game last year, I think by the end of the season, it was clear that his confidence was a major problem. His confidence was pretty much gone. And part of that, it's difficult to be a young quarterback in New York. I don't think we appreciate how tough it is, where playing quarterback in the NFL in the best of times is really hard to do. These systems are incredibly complex. You're going up against some of the best athletes in the world. You have 250 to 300 pound guys trying to hit you every single time you drop back. You have things happening just like unbelievably fast. When I watch the film on a game, sometimes it takes me like 10 reviews to like figure out what a defense has done. I'm not that I'm an NFL quarterback, but that's my point. NFL quarterbacks can't review the film 10 times like I do. They have to figure it out live, not from like the good view, but from the view in the pocket within 3 seconds of what the defense is doing. And then they have to physically have the ability to get the ball where it needs to go after they decipher this stuff. It's really hard. Now imagine you're 21. Can you think back to when you were 21, or if you're 21 right now, imagine like being the quarterback of the New York Jets and having to figure all this out on the field, but you have millions of eyeballs on you. You have a million people critiquing you. You have reporters criticizing you in the media. You have podcasts like this who criticize you when you don't do your job well. How would you handle that? It's really hard. So I think the Jets right now are just trying to kind of build up Zach Wilson's confidence a little bit. You look back to Monday night against the Bills. They can say, all right, Zach, we won the game. You had some key passes in that fourth quarter. There was a couple really key plays that he hit, especially on third downs on the touchdown drive the Jets had that tied the game. So they can build on that. But I think this week, it's going to be tough for the Jets to get super aggressive on offense, in part because Dallas has really good pass rushers, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons. Now, I think, as I mentioned, you'll see a lot of big sets for the Jets. And these guys are great pass rushers. I don't think they're bad against the run, but they're not like dominant players against the run, especially on the edge. So the Jets can, get their tight ends working in the run game. They might be able to have success. They might be able to hit some big plays. Now, Jets are going to get stuffed plenty. I guarantee you when you watch this game, you're going to be frustrated because the Jets stuff rate will be high. They'll have a lot of plays. There'll be run plays that go for very little. And that's just because Dallas is going to sell out on the run. So really for the Jets, it's going to be about popping the big runs, because essentially what you'll need the big runs to replace all the stuffs. You need the big runs to make up for all the stuffs, because you're going to see a lot of very frustrating plays. I guarantee you Nathaniel Hackett's going to be criticized, but that's the approach the Jets are going to take. And I think the focus is going to be play mistake-free football on offense, try and force turnovers on defense, try and win the special teams battle. I mean, I feel like this is pregame announcer cliche right now, but I think that this is the pathway the Jets are going to try and take in this game, where they just are going to hope that they play the perfect game. Listen, I think right now, when you take out Aaron Rodgers, Dallas at home, probably the better team. I think if you play this game out 10 times, Dallas is going to win more than the Jets do. So the Jets essentially need to bring their A game in this one, and they need to execute their plan to perfection, because the plan the Jets are going to roll out there, which is play ball control on offense, play great defense, again, win special teams, hopefully. That's not a pathway that's ever going to lead to a blowout win. I said this yesterday with Marcus of Locked On Cowboys on our crossover show. I'll say it again. I think there are 3 possible outcomes to this game. I think Cowboys could win close, Jets could win close, Cowboys could win in a blowout. I think this is going to be a close game, but there could be a pathway where the Jets give up a couple early scores, and then the Jets kind of have to open up the offense, and then you get those pass rushers against those Jets tackles, and the game could get really ugly. So Jets will need to survive the early stretches of this game. I think they will. I think they've got a really good shot to keep this a tight game going into the fourth quarter. And really, when you're the underdog, all you can ask for is just, especially on the road, just keep a tight game in the fourth quarter. And then close games, sometimes they come down to a random play here or there, a bounce of the ball, a call. there's a lot of randomness. There's a lot of luck that goes into who wins a close game. So I think that's really the pathway forward for the Jets, at least this week. And then, if you start 2-0 with Zach Wilson at quarterback, then you can really start to say, all right, Zach, things are going well. And then maybe you can start to expand things from there. So we'll see what happens, but that's all for this episode. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. As always, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, please give it a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, give this episode a big thumbs up. These things help us out and help other Jets fans find the show. Hope you have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the game. We'll be back to talk more Jets next week.